let's say if I were writing Spider-Man movie, and I'm just saying what I would do. I don't know if anyone else would do it this way, but this is what I would do if they gave me the job. All right. If they said, okay, we're gonna do Spider-Man 3, but this is what has to happen in the movie. Harry Osborne has to become a villain. We want to have the Sandman in it. We want to have Venom in it. And Peter has to wear the black suit at some point. Now, if they gave me all of those criteria, I wouldn't be happy, but I would say challenge accepted. And what would I have done? What would I have done differently? Well, this is a Spider-Man movie. So if I'm going into it, if I had a choice, I would have one villain. One villain in this movie. But if they're saying I have to have at least three, I'm not going to go halfway with this thing. I'm going to do six. That's right. I would do the Sinister Six. Now you might be wondering, your solution to this movie having too many characters is to add even more characters, to add even more villains to an already convoluted plot? Yes, absolutely. Because I told you, it has nothing to do with how many characters there are, and everything to do with how complicated the interweaving subplots are. Alright? I've talked about this before in How to Write a Screenplay as Good as Avatar and How to Write a Screenplay as Good as Star Wars The Force Awakens. What you do is you have Team A and Team B. Okay? Team A is the hero, the protagonist. Team B is the antagonist, the villain. Alright? And everyone else in the entire movie is either on Team A or Team B. There is no Team C. Alright? You don't do Team C because that's how you end up with Sandman and the new Goblin and Venom and Electro and Rhino and everything else that goes wrong with these Spider-Man movies. Alright? You got Team A and Team B. This movie does not follow those criteria, because think about it. First off, what's the test for who the protagonist is? The protagonist is the character who gets the most screen time. End of story, okay? 99% of the time, that's the test that works, and it works here. The protagonist of Spider-Man 3 is Peter Parker. The antagonist is the answer to the question, who is the biggest obstacle in the way of the protagonist achieving his or her goal? So, at the climax of Spider-Man 3, what is Spider-Man trying to do? I guess he's trying to stop Venom. Venom's kind of the mastermind at that point. He's not trying to stop Harry because they're on the same side at that point. And he is kind of trying to stop Sandman, but Sandman is kind of subservient to Venom at that point. So is it Eddie Brock? Eddie Brock might be the antagonist. So who is the biggest obstacle? So let's say Eddie Brock wants to kill Peter Parker, and Peter Parker wants to stop Eddie Brock from killing him. Fair enough. Here's the thing, though. All right. Throughout the movie, Eddie Brock does not want to kill Peter Parker. Doesn't want to kill Spider-Man. So, who is there for Spider-Man to fight for most of the movie? I mean, you could say Harry Osborn, but at the end of the movie, Harry Osborn wants to help Spider-Man. So, you could say Sandman, but Sandman doesn't want to kill Spider-Man either. Sandman just wants to get money for his daughter's treatment because his daughter's sick. So, why is Eddie Brock the villain? I don't know. He only shows up as the villain in the very end. What is Peter Parker doing for the rest of the movie? I don't know. He's fighting people who are kind of henchmen to a villain that doesn't exist yet. He's fighting his future ally. I don't know. It's messy. There's no Team A and Team B. How can anyone be on Eddie's team when Eddie doesn't have a team yet at the beginning? I don't know. It's confusing, and that's why it gets all messed up. Okay. Here's how you sort it all out. Here's how you simplify it. First off, I think it's pretty much unacceptable that Eddie Brock is the villain of Spider-Man 3. It's Harry. Harry Osborne is the villain of Spider-Man 3. It was set up that way from the very beginning of the first Spider-Man, or the end of the first Spider-Man, all right? So, Spider-Man ends with Peter Parker and Harry Osborne are at the cemetery, and Peter says something like, I know what it's like to lose a father. And Harry says, I didn't lose him, he was stolen from me. Spider-Man will pay. I swear on my father's life, or I swear on my father's grave that Spider-Man will pay. Thank God for you, Peter. I don't know what I'd do without you. All right, that's the great irony of the whole thing. Spider-Man 2 ends with, uh, Peter, you killed my father. And it's Norman Osborn's ghost saying, avenge me, and then Harry Osborn finds all of that stuff, all of the goblin gear. He has to be the villain of Spider-Man 3. That's where it's all going, okay? So, what would I do? I would do the Sinister Six. Why? Because I would have 6 villains who all have one goal, which is to kill Spider-Man. If you do that, you don't run into the problem of interweaving plot lines that get all convoluted and have to come up with some stupid explanation for why it all works. And the worst thing about Spider-Man 3, oh my god, I almost forgot about this part, speaking of memory loss, uh, Harry Osborn hits his head really hard and gets amnesia so that they can be friends again, and then his memory comes back so they can be enemies, and then they're friends again in the end, when he has a change of heart. It's so frustrating and stupid. Uh, Spider-Man 3 has some of the most contrived plot points of any superhero movie I've ever seen. It's just things happen for really stupid reasons just to move the plot forward. All right? So, here's how I would have Spider-Man 3 play out. I would open with uh, Peter Parker. He's fighting crime. He's doing his thing in New York City. And he's feeling pretty good about himself. Maybe he's a little overconfident. Maybe he's like, man, I am the best superhero ever. I've got this all figured out. Kind of like what they did with the actual movie. Then, Harry Osborn, using the unlimited resources he has as a billionaire villain working at Oscorp, he engineers a prison break from Rikers prison. I think it's Rikers, where 4 villains escape from prison that were put away by Spider-Man. Maybe a bunch of other ones, but uh, well, actually, yeah, probably what would happen is uh, uh, Harry Osborn would engineer a massive prison break where there's a whole bunch of criminals loose in New York, but purposely recruits 4 of the worst to fight Spider-Man. All right, so Harry Osborn recruits 4 of these criminals and gives them Oscorp gear to fight Spider-Man. So you'd probably end up with the Vulture, maybe Rhino, could be Mysterio, Shocker, Electro. It could be any number of villains. Like I haven't even figured out which ones I would use. Anything that would be cool. You could do Sandman. That's a little difficult because I want them to be technology based, not like metahumans or mutants or whatever. So or enhanced, whatever they want to call them. So they would all have to mostly be tech based. It'd be gear that they could strap on and Scorpion. Scorpion would be a good one. Uh, but so there would be 4 at this point, 4 bad guys from Rikers, and Harry Osborne. So you got a total of 5. And Harry Osborne would actually be wearing the Goblin gear from the first movie. He's not going to wear a paintball mask and ride a hoverboard. He's going to be the Green Goblin. Okay? He's the Green Goblin. So there's this massive prison break. Spider-Man's really worn thin because he's fighting all these bad guys. All of a sudden, this group of villains, I'm not going to call them the Sinister Five at this point, but it's basically the Sinister Five. It's 5 villains fighting together, okay? Now, Spider-Man fights them, and it's not like anything he's ever had to deal with before. He fought the Green Goblin, fine. He fought Doc Ock, no problem. Now he's fighting the Green Goblin again, and 4 more supervillains, and he's totally out of his league. He gets completely beaten, almost gets killed, narrowly escapes with his life. He starts digging into the origins of these people. He's trying to figure out where they got their tech. And he knows that the top suspect would be Oscorp because Green Goblin was part of it. So he starts digging through Oscorp's files, either, on his computer or, yeah, I'd say he's probably on his computer. And he's digging through old files, and things like that. Maybe hacks into Oscorp or whatever. And he's looking at all their projects. And he finds the Scorpion suit. He finds the Vulture wings. He finds Mysterio's costume, whatever it is that he's got there. And he's like, holy crap, all of these people are funded by Oscorp. All these people got their gear from Oscorp. And as he's digging through it, he happens to stumble across the Symbiote project. What's that? He finds out that it's this artificial substance that's designed to enhance physical abilities. So whatever abilities you have, it makes them stronger. And this is basically a story about steroids. Spider-Man is looking at this symbiote project, and he says, that's it. That's the only way that I'm going to be able to beat these guys. The only way I can stop them is if I enhance my own power. So he breaks into Oscorp, steals the symbiote. Now he's Black Suit Spider-Man. He fights the Sinister Five again, and he wins this time. He doesn't kill anyone. Nobody goes to jail. They escape. All right? But he wins. That's the important part. He had the upper hand. Now, as things are going on, he's starting to realize that he's going a little bit dark, that he's got this suit on him at all times. He doesn't take it off. That was the other thing that bothered me about Spider-Man 3. He actually takes off the suit quite a few times. Once he has the black suit on, it should be a part of him. That was one of the cool things about it in the comics, is you put on the black suit and it just stays like underneath your clothes, and it's liquid. All right? Or at least I think it was supposed to be liquid. I don't know. But he takes off the black suit so many times in the actual movie, and I think once he has it on, it should stay on, and it should go darker and darker and darker and get more and more obsessed in a more realistic way. And God, this is the part I keep blocking out, is Peter Parker turning into the third Roxbury brother when he puts on this black suit. He goes out dancing and talks like a 1940s gangster and dances like the Mask. Wow. Okay. Not the way I would have gone with it. All right. I would say it should all be very organic to Peter Parker, and that he wants to stop crime, he wants to stop criminals, and just really genuinely go dark with him. Like, what is actually Peter Parker's dark side, and how could it get worse? So if I want to be organic about this, I would go back to the beginning. I would look at Spider-Man 1. What is the darkest moment in the first one? One of the darkest parts is when he's facing off against the guy who he thinks God damn it! Like that's another thing that Spider-Man 3 messed up was that um, Dennis Carradine, I think, uh, is the guy who shot Uncle Ben, and then in Spider-Man 3 they reveal that it wasn't actually him; it was Flint Marko, Sandman. God, I hate that so much. All right, so uh, let's say in my version, no. The guy who shot Uncle Ben in the first movie is the guy who shot Uncle Ben. All right. There's no conspiracy. There's no Flint Marko. There's no Sandman. None of that. All right. So the guy, the guy who shot Uncle Ben, gets tracked down by Peter Parker, and Peter Parker is like, "What about my uncle? Did you give him a chance? Did you?" And even though it was an accident, like he like breaks his hand and he's like really angry and all that stuff. Um, that's the start of it. That's the start of his dark side there. If you go to Spider-Man 2, does he have any really dark moments? Not really. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he does go really dark in Spider-Man 2. Um, he has trouble balancing things out, but he doesn't get angry. So, but I would say in Spider-Man 3, he should start getting kind of obsessive and just off balance, and not like a cartoon character, not over the top, but just he should be slightly off balance, and he's a little too obsessed with stopping criminals, and maybe is a little more brutal than usual, and maybe he's thinking about killing them. Maybe he's thinking about crossing the line to make things easier and to stop, to be a deterrent to crime. Anything like that would be good. Eventually, he realizes he's gone too far and he's got to take the suit off. So he does. He manages to get rid of the symbiote and it's gone. But he can't destroy it, so it gets away. It just crawls away. And it starts seeking a new host. It's not that Eddie Brock just happens to be there at the time. Eddie Brock is somewhere else. And he would be a character that's going on throughout this movie as sort of a rival to Peter Parker. And here's a point where I don't know if it was in the script or if it was casting that decided this. Look, Topher Grace is a great actor, don't get me wrong. He's not Eddie Brock, okay? Go back and watch Back to the Future. George McFly is Peter Parker. Biff Tannen is Eddie Brock, all right? This is what would happen if the worst bully in the school got Spider-Man's powers, all right? If a nerdy kid like Peter Parker gets powers, he becomes a hero. What happens when the school bully, 6'5", 250 pounds, what happens when he gets the same powers as Spider-Man? That's what it's all about. He's not supposed to be Peter Parker's evil twin. He's supposed to be like the one guy you would not want to get these powers. All right? So that's the direction I would have gone. I would have gone big. The dude who played Flash Thompson in the first movie would have been great for Eddie Brock. All right? That's the kind of person we're talking about. It's the school bully picking on the school nerd on a superhero scale. Okay? That's what it should feel like. So Eddie Brock gets attacked by the symbiote and it latches onto him and he becomes Venom. And Harry Osborne finds out about this and recruits him. Now we have the Sinister Six. Now we have all six of them. And Harry realizes that this symbiote is the reason why Peter Parker had the black suit. And now that they got the symbiote back and it's on their side and it's now called Venom, Peter Parker is once again at a disadvantage. Spider-Man's at a disadvantage because he's back to the way he was before, and now they have a new member on the Sinister Six, all right? So now they're definitely going to beat him.